boring history. For sleep, vertical bar, life in a medieval castle. For everyone except the king, good evening. Tonight, we're not following kings or chasing legends. We're stepping into the quiet corners of a castle. The kitchens, the corridors, the cold stone floors where unseen hands worked in silence. The scullery maid, with raw red knuckles. The spit boy blinking through smoke. The guard pacing alone beneath a moonlit sky. They weren't in the history books, but their labor kept everything standing. If stories like these bring you peace at the end of a long day, feel free to like or subscribe, only if it feels right. And let me know where you're listening from and what time it is. There's comfort in knowing these quiet voices echo across the world. So wrap yourself in something warm. The fire's glowing low. Let's begin. Hey there. Settle in. Let's ease back into the dim, smoky corners of that medieval castle, where the air hums with the clatter of pots and the sharp bark of the cook's orders. We're not here for the nobles' feasts or the minstrels' tunes tonight. No, we're stepping into the world of the scullery maid, a young woman whose life is a relentless cycle of scrubbing, hauling, and surviving, all while the castle's grandeur looms above her. If you're curled up, ready to drift off with these quiet tales of forgotten folk, maybe give a nod with a like or drop a comment about where you're listening from. It's comforting to know we're sharing this moment across the miles. So, pull that blanket closer, let the world fade, and let's sink into her story, soft and steady, like embers glowing in the hearth. The scullery maid's day begins not with a gentle dawn, but with a jolt, as the cold stone floor she calls a bed steals the last traces of warmth from her bones. She's maybe 16, though years blur when survival is the only calendar. Her mattress is a burlap sack stuffed with straw so old it crumbles to dust, reeking of burnt grease and despair. She sleeps by the kitchen hearth, the only spot in the castle that's marginally less freezing than the courtyard. But even that warmth is a lie, more a taunt than a comfort. Her shift, a single-course wool tunic, is both pajamas and uniform, stiff with grime and boiled maybe once this year, if she's lucky. The cook's heavy step grazes her ribs as she stirs, a reminder that lingering isn't an option. She rises before the sun, before the roosters, in a darkness so deep it feels like the world hasn't yet decided to exist. Her first task is fire, the lifeblood of the kitchen. The hearth's embers have died overnight, a small disaster in a place where flame is everything. Barefoot, her shoes long since disintegrated into door insulation, she shuffles across the jagged, dew-slick flagstones of the courtyard, hands too numb to flinch at splinters as she gathers kindling. Back inside, she crouches by the hearth, breath fogging in the chill, coaxing sparks from damp wood with flint and a string of muttered curses. The fire catches, a frail crackle that feels like a personal victory. She hovers her fingers over the flames until they thaw from corpse-like stiffness. But there's no time to savor it. Water's next, and the castle doesn't have plumbing, it has her. She hauls wooden buckets from the well, gallons of sloshing weight balanced on a yoke that bites into her narrow shoulders. Each trip is a gauntlet. Her arms burn, her back screams, her knees wobble like overcooked porridge. 4 trips, 5, and still the kitchen staff trickles in, yawning and scratching, offering no thanks, no glances. She's furniture with legs, invisible unless something's wrong. The cook storms in, a sweating thunderclap of bad temper, wielding a wooden spoon like a scepter of justice. "Stew pot's crusty," she bellows, and the maid's heart sinks. She scrubs, knuckles raw, using ash and sand instead of soap. Soap's for nobles and dreamers. The lye, when someone bothers to make it, stings her skin, leaving calluses that bleed and burn. Her right hand's a map of scars. Her left's worse. The scullery is a punishment dressed as a workspace, a low-ceilinged cave of soot and stench. No ventilation, just a window clogged black, trapping air thick with boiled meat and something unnameable. She hunches over basins, scraping grease from trenchers, swatting rats with a ladle like it's a sport. Rats rule here. She just pays rent. Mid-morning, her stomach gnaws, but food's a distant hope. A hidden bread heel, dry as chalk, is her secret, gnawed behind a doorway. She's caught, of course. A kitchen maid's sharp eyes report her, and now latrine duty looms for the week, a fate worse than scrubbing. Later, she's promoted to onion duty, chopping until tears stream. Not from sadness, but from the sting. No one checks if she's all right. They assume she's crying for her lot in life. Noon brings the noble's first meal. A pageant she serves, but never joins. She carries dishes, steps precisely as drilled, eyes fixed on the floor. Nobles don't like servants with faces. Her arms tremble holding a pitcher for an hour, never asked to pour, going numb as lords laugh over venison. After, she cleans again. Trenchers slick with gravy, bones tossed under tables, half-eaten pies, chewed grapes, a fish that's more mystery than meal. She scrapes it into the slop bucket, sneaking a crust when no one watches, just enough to keep her legs from buckling. Stealing scraps is forbidden, but starvation doesn't follow rules. Afternoon melts into evening, a blur of hauling water, peeling roots, mopping floors, sweeping halls. She's blamed for a dog's mess in the solar, a room she's never seen but somehow haunts. Dinner prep is louder, hotter. The hearth a roaring beast filling rafters with smoke. A dropped pot sparks the cook's screams. A near fire she slaps out with her apron. She eats from a shared bowl, a watery stew with a lone barley grain and a dubious chunk squirrel, maybe. It's food, so she swallows. Standing by nobles again, she's a silent prop, feet soaked, back locked, voice reduced to, yes, cook, or, sorry, cook. Night falls, and dishes pile like battle wreckage. Bones fuse to pans like ancient relics. Her hands shake, not from cold but exhaustion. Dismissed with a grunt, she crawls to her sack by the hearth. Embers dim, but warm enough to press against. Her tunic's damp. Her body smells of onions and fatigue. Another maid cries softly nearby. She doesn't ask why. She lies still, not asleep, not awake, tracing the cracks in her life. She didn't choose this, born to a dairymaid whose back broke, an aunt lost to river fever. She inherited suffering like a worn ladle. There's no escape, no promotion to cook or lady's maid, just a slow grind until her hands fail. Replaced by someone younger, hungrier, she clings to small things. The kitchen's rhythm, unspoken alliances, rules of survival. Never cross the cook. Share bread with the bleeding girl. Dodge the steward's gaze. Gossip whispered tales of nights and figs is her only coin. Winter's crueler still. Coughs rack her frame. Her shift clings for weeks, layered with rags. Water freezes in buckets before she reaches the kitchen. But stopping means losing her place. She's told suffering is holy, especially for girls like her. So she scrubs on, invisible but vital. No statues will rise for her. No songs will echo, but the kitchen would collapse without her hands. Her dreams flicker green fields, boats sailing far but they're half-formed, drowned by dawn's call. She twitches, aches, and wakes to another day, the same as the last, unnoticed except by the rats. Yet, in her quiet endurance, she's the castle's pulse, holding it steady as the world sleeps. All right, let's ease back into the smoky haze of that medieval castle kitchen, where the air's thick with grease and the fire never quits. Picture a kid, maybe 8 or 10, perched on a wobbly stool by a roaring hearth, his face flushed red, his tunic singed at the edges. This is the spit boy, a scrawny figure caught in a world of heat, hunger, and endless turning. His life isn't the stuff of ballads. No shining armor or grand quests here. Just a relentless grind to keep the noble's roast spinning just right. If this quiet tale of resilience soothes you, maybe give it a like or drop a comment about where you're listening from. It's comforting, isn't it? Knowing we're all sharing this flicker of history. So, pull that blanket closer, let the world fade, and step into his story. Soft as embers glowing low, the Spit Boy's day starts with a jolt. Not from any rooster or bell, but from the cook's heavy boot nudging his ribs. He's curled up on a straw mat by the hearth, the only spot in the kitchen that's marginally warm, though it smells like burnt fat and yesterday's mistakes. His bedding's a threadbare sack, stiff with grease, and his tunic coarse wool, patched and scorched doubles as his only armor against the fire's bite. He's an orphan, maybe sold by desperate kin or handed over as an opportunity by parents with too many mouths to feed. No one asks his name. He's just a boy, a shadow flitting through the chaos of pots and shouts. His job sounds simple. Sit by the great hearth, turn the spit, keep the meat roasting evenly. But it's simply a lie. The spit's a heavy iron rod, skewering geese, pigs, or even deer on feast days. And it's his small hands that crank it, hour after hour. The fire's a beast, unnatural heat, baking one side of his body while the other shivers in the drafty kitchen. His cheeks are permanently flushed, his hair damp with sweat, his tunic reeking of every roast that's passed through duck, boar, mutton. Once, he loved the smell of sizzling meat. Now it twists his stomach, sparking headaches that throb behind his eyes. The kitchen's a furnace of chaos. Cooks bellow, maids dart with trays, pots clatter like a storm. Amid it all, he's the still point, turning the spit with a rhythm he's learned through burns and slaps. Too fast, the meat chars. Too slow, it cooks unevenly, and the cook's wooden spoon finds his head. Once, a steward accused him of cheekiness for blinking too much, of all things. He doesn't cry anymore when he burns himself. Tears just sizzle away. Blisters dot his hands, his forearms a map of scars. If he faints, he's told to land where he won't spill anything. No one's got time for sympathy. Hunger's his constant shadow. He hasn't eaten since last night's pottage, a thin gruel of barley and turnips that barely filled his belly. Sometimes, a cook tosses him a gnawed bone, half chewed but precious, and he hunches in a corner, tearing at it like a stray dog. He's learned to hide scraps in his apron, a crust of bread, a sliver of fat guarding them from rats and sharper-eyed maids. Once, he got caught nibbling a heel of bread. The cook sent him to latrine duty for a week. The memory still stings worse than the burns. The spit never rests, and neither does he. Feast days are the worst longer spits, bigger beasts, like whole pigs or deer, that take two boys to turn. His last partner, a kid with a lazy eye and a mean streak, would let go mid-crank just to watch him scramble. That boy's gone now, maybe to the kennels, maybe worse. The spit boy doesn't ask. He just keeps turning, knees numb, back knotted, one foot once falling asleep so hard he thought he'd gone lame. The steward called it dramatic and lobbed a turnip at him. He ducked, but the bruise on his pride lingered. He's invisible until something goes wrong. If the roast's uneven, the blame's his, never the fire's temper or the cook's haste. When it's done, he hauls the sizzling meat off, grease dripping, fat hissing, flinching at the heat but knowing a hesitation earns a slap. Then it's on to the next roast, or stirring stews that reek of despair, or scrubbing spits that weigh more than he does. Time blurs, firelight and hunger are his only clocks. The noble's laughter drifts from the hall above, a world of white bread and soft chairs he'll never touch. He exists so they don't have to think about him. Winter's crueler still. The castle's thick walls don't hold warmth for him. One side roasts, the other freezes, a human skewer of fatigue and frostbite, his tunic's layered with scraps. But his feet, wrapped in rags, ache in the cold. Summer's no better sweat soaks through, smoke chokes thicker, and his cough, born of ash, sounds like an old man's rattle. He's inhaled so much soot, his spit's black, his eyes red as the coals. Health's a stranger. Burns are rubbed with pig lard, and he's told to keep turning. There's no way out. Spit boys don't become cooks or stewards. They grow into other servitude, or don't grow at all. He dreams sometimes of green fields, of boats sailing far but wakes to the fire's crackle, the spit's creak. Yet, in the quiet moments, when the kitchen quiets and he sits by the dying embers, there's a strange pride. The roast was perfect tonight. No one yelled. A dog curls nearby, warm and real, and for a second, he's not alone. It's not much, but in this world of heat and hunger, it's enough to keep him turning, one slow crank at a time, until sleep pulls him under like a fading flame. All right, let's slip into the darkest hours of that medieval castle, where the world's asleep and the air carries a weight no one names. Picture a figure moving through the shadows, rake in hand, bucket swinging, heading for a job that pays better than most but costs more than anyone should bear. This is the gong farmer, the night's quiet cleaner, wading through what others leave behind. His story isn't one of glory or even pity. It's raw, real, and heavy with necessity. If this tale of unseen endurance wraps you in a strange calm, maybe tap that like button or share where you're listening from. There's a quiet bond in knowing we're all here, drifting through history's forgotten corners. So, tuck that blanket tight, let the fire's glow fade, and step into his world, slow and steady, like a breath held too long. The gong farmer's work begins when the castle falls silent, not because he loves the dark, but because daylight's too kind for what he does. He rises from a straw pallet in a hut on the town's edge, the air already thick with the scent that's become his shadow. His tunic, layers of rough wool stuffed with moss, is less clothing than armor against the stench, though it never wins. No one calls his name. He's just a farmer or worse, a muttered curse when folks cross the street to avoid him. He's no outcast by choice. His job pays a coin more than a cook's helper, but the price is a life where even the wind seems to shun you. His tools are simple: a rake, a shovel, a bucket, and a cart that creaks like it hates him. He pulls on boots, cracked and caked from last night's work, and steps into the cold, torch in hand. The castle's cesspits wait, hidden beneath stone or earth, holding months of human and animal waste, broken pots, and nameless sludge. His task is to empty them before they spill into streets or sicken the lords who'd rather forget he exists. He moves through quiet alleys, the cart's wheels leaving tracks that wilt the air, folks gagging if they catch his path. At the pit, the smell hits like a fist, a mix of rot, sewage, and despair that burns his eyes and coats his tongue. He breathes through his mouth, but it's no escape now he tastes it. The ladder's optional, a rope if he's lucky, and he descends, boots squelching into ankle-deep muck, sometimes knee-deep, always bottomless in memory. The pit's a living thing, gray sludge bubbling, black crusts shifting, slick masses that seem to whisper as he rakes. He digs through waste human, animal, straw soaked in fluids, scraps of food, cloth, dead rats. Once a chicken he buried with a scrap of dignity. Coins, dropped by careless nobles, are rare treasures he pockets, earned in ways no one envies. The bucket fills fast, heavy with what the castle's flushed away. He hauls it up, rope biting his hands, and dumps it into the cart, the wooden box groaning under the weight. A dozen trips, more if a feast bloated the pit, and he works by torchlight, flames flickering like they're ashamed to witness. Silence is his only companion, No one speaks in a cesspit. The night stretches, his back aching, hands numbing, eyes watering from the stench that's now part of his skin. A kid once threw a cabbage at him. He flung something back, a moment of shame he carries like the smell. When the cart's full, he rolls it beyond the town walls, to the dumping grounds, where this night soil will fertilize fields. The nobles, dining on vegetables grown in their own refuse, never know, and he finds a grim irony in that cycle. He empties the cart, the sludge slopping onto earth, and returns to rinse his tools in a pond already half ruined. The water doesn't clean his boots, his hands, his soul. The stink clings, a badge no one honors. Neighbors avoid his table. Even his wife, if he has one, insists he sleep outside when the smell's too fierce. His kids say he smells like sin. He can't argue. Winter's the cruelest. The waste freezes, forcing him to hack through icy crusts with a shovel. The warm horror beneath a bitter mockery of heat. Summer's worse, baking the stench into a cloud that draws flies and wasps. His sweat soaking through shoes, the air itself a punishment. He's tried vinegar, herbs, mint leaves to mask it, but the rot always wins, floral and foul. Folks whisper insults, smell like a gong farmer, and assume he's dull. He's not. He knows how to brace a ladder, while hauling 40 pounds of filth, which the pit side's safe after rain, which torch oils won't spark methane. That's science, or close enough. The pay's his only leverage. Better than a baker's boy because no one else will crawl through this. He earns enough for a hut, a loaf, ale, to dull the edge of a job that demands sobriety's a kind of madness. He eats alone, bread tasting like ash, not from fire but from a nose broken by rot. He dreams of being a baker, a scribe, anything clean, but wakes to hands that smell of last night. The castle guards just don't fall in and laugh like it's new. He smiles, polite, hiding the time one shoved him near the pit's edge. He didn't smile then. There's no pride in songs or statues, but a quiet kind, born of necessity. If he stopped, the castle would choke in its own filth within days. He's no hero, just the thin line between order and disaster. At night's end, he leans his shovel against a wall, sits on a log, and closes eyes that see rot even in sleep. The stars above are cold, but they're there, steady. He breathes. Not clean air, but enough to carry him to tomorrow's pit. It's not much, but in a world of stench and shadow, it's what keeps him moving, one bucket at a time, until dawn hides his work again. Let's sink back into the quiet hum of that medieval castle, where stone walls hold secrets and every step echoes with purpose. Picture a young figure, barely more than a boy, moving through torchlit halls, a ledger tucked under one arm, a pouch of keys jangling softly at his belt. This is Chamberlain's apprentice, a servant with a foot in the noble's world but no claim to it, carrying the weight of silent responsibility. His story isn't loud or grand. It's a steady rhythm of lists, nods, and unseen effort that keeps the castle's chaos stitched together. If this gentle tale of duty wraps you in calm, maybe tap that like or share where you're listening from. It's nice, isn't it? Knowing we're all drifting through these forgotten lives. So, pull your blanket close, dim the lights, and let's wander into his world, soft as ink drying on parchment. Chamberlain's apprentice wakes before dawn, not to a bell, but to the ache in his bones from a narrow bunk in the servants' hall. His spot's near a decent fire, not the kitchen's rat-roasting kind, but one that offers a flicker of warmth. He splashes cold water on his face, combs his hair with calloused fingers, and brushes his tunic, a cleaner shade of wool than most, though ink stains dot the cuffs. Presentation matters. He's no noble, but he's a servant with access, stepping into rooms others only scrub. His squeaky leather shoes, stiff and curled at the toes, betray his every move, a constant reminder he's not meant to blend in completely. His day begins with candles, replacing stubs in the hallways with tallow tapers that smell faintly of sheep. Beeswax is for the chapel or great hall. He handles the cheap stuff, noting every flicker out of place. His second job is to notice a low salt cellar, a missing wine cask, a full chamber pot. He delegates to someone lower. He's a silent scribbler, trailing the chamberlain, a sharp-nosed man who smells of ink and lavender, robes always spotless, expectations sharper than a quill. The chamberlain speaks in lists, wool bolts, lamp oil, a friar's odd dietary whims. The apprentice nods, writes, prays he doesn't spill ink again. Last time, he recopied a month's ledger by candlelight while the steward chewed herring in his ear. He's part clerk, part courier, part scapegoat. Missing linens? His fault. Damp firewood? His fault. A dog's mess on the guest stairwell? Somehow it's still his fault. Mid-morning means inspections, following the chamberlain like a ghost, noting tapped walls, sniffed rushes, tasted wine. He stifles yawns. Once, he got caught and spent a day sorting peas by size. Lunch is no break, but a maze of seating charts and feuds. Lady Cressida won't sit near Lord Ulrich since the Lent wine spat. He carries titles, corrects missteps, and ensures no blood feud sparks over pigeon pie. Afternoons blur into accounts, reading wax, fish, salt, horseshoes in the solar, the chamberlain's eyebrow rising at any hesitation. Visitors, nobles, knights, cousins between holdings bring trunks and egos. He notes their linens, knowing a missing sheet will haunt him. The castle's keys, from armory to wardrobe, hang heavy at his belt, touched like prayer beads. Losing one would end his career, or worse, land him in the privy. Logistics pile up. Late herring, missing velvet, a drunk priest on the chapel floor. He drafts responses, even love notes for a noble lady who dictates behind a curtain, her lapdog slurping cream. He edits her madness, delivers the sealed nonsense to a blushing knight. Evenings mean candles again, relighting halls, trimming wicks, checking guest rooms for spilled wine or elopements. His feet throb, head pounds, fingers cramp from wax and ink. He hasn't eaten since a morning crust, waiting for the chamberlain's dismissal, sometimes forgotten, as the man drones stories to a bored page. He dozes outside the chamber, stomach hollow, chin in hand, until a finger flick sends him to his bunk. The fire's out, his blanket stolen again. He lies half-dressed, staring at rafters, wondering if power smells like tallow, ink, and sweat. He's caught between worlds. Not a servant scrubbing pots, not a noble sipping mead. The others tolerate him, wary of his cleaner clothes and words like allocation. But nobles forget his name even as he lights their hearths. He's a walking ledger, fluent in silence, skilled at being indispensable yet invisible. Secrets drift past hemorrhoids, stolen pastries, who finds whom insufferable but power's just rules and ways to fail. The chamberlain calls it discipline. He calls it exhaustion, though never allowed. Winter cuts deeper, drafts slicing through his tunic, his squeaky shoes no shield against frozen stone. Summer's a blur of sweat and haste, ink smudging under damp fingers, health frays. His eyes strain from candlelit numbers. His back creaks like he's older than 17. Promotion's a whisper, maybe steward's assistant, maybe cellar books, but more likely, he'll grind on until his eyes or back give out. There's no pension, just a slow fade. Yet, there's a quiet pride in his work. The castle runs because he counts the salt, tracks the keys, catches the priest's wine before it spills. Small moments, a nod from the steward, a clean ledger page feel like victories. In the still hours, he pauses by a window, stars cold but steady above. He dreams of numbers, not glory, and wakes to bells, stretching aching legs, shoes squeaking as he relights the candles. It's not much, but in a world of orders and blame, keeping the chaos stitched together is enough to carry him through, one list at a time, until sleep claims him like a closed book. Continuing with the gritty warmth of that medieval castle, where the air smells of hay and sweat, and the quiet snorts of horses fill the pre-dawn hush, picture a lad, barely 16, climbing down a creaky ladder from a hayloft, his boots already caked with last night's muck. This is the stable boy, a figure of calloused hands and quiet trust, tethered to creatures who understand him better than any lord ever will. His story's not one of heroics or fame. It's a steady pulse of shovels, brushes, and bonds forged in the dim light of stalls. If this soft tale of loyalty lulls you into peace, maybe hit that like button or share where you're listening from. It's a cozy feeling, knowing we're all here, wandering through history's unsung corners. So snuggle into that blanket, let the fires glow dim, and step into his world, gentle as a horse's nuzzle. The stable boy's day begins in darkness, stirred not by bells but by the restless shuffle of hooves below his loft. His bed's a pile of straw and rags, mildew and saddle oil clinging to it like old friends. He pulls on a sour-smelling tunic, stiff boots that pinch his toes, and descends into the cold, where the stable's breath of hay, manure, and horse wraps around him. It's a smell he's stopped noticing, woven into his skin like the scars on his knuckles. No one calls his name. He's just a boy, even though his back creaks like he's older than his years. He's no knight's squire, no lord's kin, just a servant whose world is bound by stall walls and the trust of beasts. His work starts with mucking, a rhythm of shovel, pitch, shovel again, clearing dung before the master of the horse arrives. Move too fast, and the horses spook, too slow, and he'll earn a split lip and a lecture on discipline. The stalls are his domain, each one a small kingdom of straw and snorts, and he knows every quirk Smoke's nervous pawing, Gorse's biting temper, Willow's soft whinny. He's broken fingers, taken a hoof to the ribs that left him coughing blood, but he loves these creatures. They don't lie, don't sneer, don't care he's nobody. Their trust is earned, not demanded, and that's more than any noble's ever offered. Feeding next, a dance of heavy oat sacks and hay bales hauled from the loft, careful not to twist his back like last winter, when the master called him faking and threw a bridle at his head. Some horses gulp greedily, others nibble shyly, and he's learned their ways to pat necks, dodge teeth, whisper nonsense to keep them calm. Grooming follows, brushing coats until they gleam, untangling manes, cleaning hooves with a gentleness he'd never show a person. He checks for burrs, wipes noses, and scoops more dung than he can count. If the Lord rides, he polishes tack to a shine, not for praise, but to avoid the master's fist. The stable's a world apart from the castle's stone halls, alive with clatters and snorts, flies buzzing like tiny curses, noble dogs loud, twitchy hunting breeds stray in, leaving messes he cleans without a word. When the Lord decides to ride, always last minute, the stable erupts. He saddles the best gelding, one that hates touch, checking straps thrice, wiping the bit, adjusting stirrups too short for fashion's sake. He stands aside, invisible, as the Lord mounts. A fidgeting horse, a slip in mud, a broken nail, it's all his fault. The blame lingering for weeks. Breaks are rare, less rest than pause. Sitting on a stool, with warm ale in a tin cup, staring at dust motes like weary ghosts. His shoulders throb, muscles pulled in places he didn't know existed, but the horses need brushing, water, hay. Winter's brutal troughs freeze. Breath steams like dragon smoke, and he hammers ice for their drink, fingers numb even in gloves. Summer's a blistering haze, hay rotting, sweat soaking his soul. Evening brings clouds of flies, and he swats them half-heartedly. Cleaning stalls as a mare soils her bedding again. her nerves signaling bad weather he feels in his joints. No one thanks him. The master grunts if pleased, yells if not, and he measures days by how close that voice gets to his face. He sneaks carrots for the gray mare who doesn't bite, the chestnut who only snaps at strangers. Their velvet noses nuzzle his hand, the closest he gets to affection. At night, he climbs back to the loft, peeling off boots, flexing raw feet. He eats alone, cheese traded for a favor, onion bread too hard for the kitchen, chewing slowly, listening to torchlight laughter from the great hall, a dream not his own. He's nearly 17, back creaking like a drawbridge, but the castle calls him boy. Maids leave him crusts. The blacksmith grunts a greeting. Once a knight gave him a silver coin for calming a stallion. He keeps it, unspent. Proof he's not invisible. There's no ladder to steward or squire, no brush that becomes a sword. He knows animals how to wrap wounds, calm foals, spot lameness, and that's enough. Boys who can't take it break or vanish. He stays, head down, working. Winter leaks through stable walls. Summer rots the hay, but the horses wait, trusting his voice, his hands. Lying in straw, arms under head, he listens to their breathing. The winds rattle, hoofbeats in dreams. A hoofprint in frosted mud, steaming with life, is his mark gone by morning but real now. No songs will name him, but the horses nicker at his boots. And in a world of orders and sneers, their trust is rare, worth staying for. Sleep pulls him under, soft as straw, until dawn calls him back to the stalls. Okay, let's slip back into the smoky, bustling heart of that medieval castle, where the clatter of pots and the hiss of roasting meat never quite fade. Picture a figure, young but already stooped, dodging through the kitchen's chaos, a short-legged dog trailing at his heels, its fur matted with grease. This is the turnspit dog keeper, a soul bound to the endless spin of a wheel that powers the noble's feasts. His tale isn't woven with glory or grand escapes. It's a gritty rhythm of sweat, barks, and quiet loyalty to creatures as weary as he is. If this soft story of endurance soothes you, maybe tap that like or share where you're drifting off from. There's a warmth in knowing we're all here, lost in these forgotten lives. So, pull your blanket tight, let the fire's glow dim, and step into his world, steady as paws on a wooden wheel. Now, as the castle's halls grow quiet and the stars peek through the night, let's turn to the turnspit dog keeper, whose days revolve around a peculiar kind of canine endurance. He wakes before the kitchen sparks to life, stirred by the restless whines of dogs sprawled across his straw pallet near the hearth. His bed's a mess of rags and fur, reeking of duck fat and ash, and his tunic coarse wool, singed and stained, clings to him like a second skin. He's barely a man, maybe 17, but his hunched shoulders and grease-slick hands mark him as part of the kitchen's machinery. No one calls his name. He's just a dog boy, a shadow among the pots, tasked with keeping the turnspit dogs running to roast the Lord's meat. His job sounds odd. Manage dogs that power a wheel, like hamsters bred for toil, to turn spits laden with boar or goose. But it's a brutal dance of timing and coaxing. He hauls the first dog, a stubby mutt named Snipe, from the pallet. Dodging a half-hearted nip, Snipe's been on duty 3 days straight, and resentment's in his eyes. The wheel, a creaky wooden cage, looms by the hearth, and Snipe crawls in, the gate latching behind him. As the fire roars, he walks, the spit spinning, meat sizzling above. The keeper watches, bribing with scraps, begging softly to keep the pace steady. A slow dog means uneven roasts, and the cook's ladle hot, sharp, or both finds his head. A stopped wheel? That's a disaster. Meat slipping. The cook screaming he's ruined a feast, even if it's just May. The kitchen's a furnace? Smoke and shouts thick as stew. Cooks bellow, maids scurry, pots clang like a storm. He's calm amid it, tending 4 dogs, 2 running, 2 twitching in a corner, gnawing bones. He rotates them like cartwheels, rubbing their legs, whispering encouragements as if they're gladiators, not sausage-shaped drudges. Burns scar his forearms, parchment thin from the hearth's heat. Winter makes it a smoky hell. Summer's a divine punishment, sweat soaking through, ash blackening his spit. His cough, born of years inhaling soot, rattles like a broken bellows, his eyes red as the coals he tends. Hunger gnaws constantly. He hasn't eaten since last night's pottage, a watery mix of peas and turnips that left him hollow. Scraps are his lifeline, goose fat, gravy-soaked crusts. He slips the dogs when no one's looking, knowing empty stomachs don't run. He hides a crust in his apron, nibbling in shadows. But once a maid caught him, and he scrubbed pots for a week. The dogs eat better than he does, though not by much. Noble's scraps are forbidden, but he risks it. Their grateful licks worth a bitten thumb nearly lost last week. Dogs aren't pets. Bred for endurance, not love. They're surly, snapping at ankles if he's late with food. Snipe's stubborn, Button's twitchy. Moore's is quiet. And Guts means as a storm, only softens for bacon grease. He names them, though no one else does, learning their moods through bites and blood. Once, 3 chewed his shoe in a mutiny. He keeps a stick nearby, hating to use it, but sometimes they dig in, staring with eyes that know they're trapped in a cruel jest. A noble child once called the wheel a spinning puppy, her tutor yanking her away as if he'd shown her sin. He stayed silent, as always. There's no escape. Turnspit keepers don't rise to cooks or stewards. They grind on, backs hunching, knees aching, until they're too slow or broken. He's 17, but his posture's that of an old man, ducking beams, crouching by pens, hauling hot spits. He dreamed once of being a falconer, soaring with birds, but the wheel's drum drowns out birdsong. Health's a stranger, burns are sand, scrubbed, his cough ignored. Winter's a smoky choke, summer a sweat-soaked blur. But the dogs keep running, and so does he. Yet, in the rare quiet, when the kitchen stills and he sits by the smoldering hearth, there's a flicker of pride. The roast was perfect tonight. No one threw a ladle. He cleans the wheel. Its squeak, a ghost of last month's bruise, and slips Moore's a crust. She curls beside him, warm and real, her breath a steady comfort. It's not love, but it's close to a moment where he's seen, not by cooks or lords, but by a creature as tired as he. He dreams of running, not fleeing, just moving free, but wakes to pause on wood, the wheel's eternal turn. His life's a cycle of grease, heat, and barks, no songs to mark his days. But when Moore's nuzzles his arm after a long run, or the Lord nods at the meat's earthy taste, his sweat, maybe dog hair he feels a quiet worth. It's not much, but in this world of shouts and smoke, it's enough to keep the wheel spinning, one dog at a time, until sleep claims him, soft as a dog's sigh by the fire's last glow. Let's linger a bit longer in the smoky, bustling world of that medieval castle, where every corner hums with unseen labor and the weight of survival. We've just left the turnspit dog keeper, hunched by the hearth, coaxing weary dogs to keep the noble's feast spinning. Now, let's step outside, where the air bites sharper and the dawn's first light catches a lone figure bent over steaming buckets, her hands raw from lie. This is the washerwoman, a soul tethered to the endless cycle of soap, water, and pain, scrubbing the castle's linens clean while her own body frays. Her story isn't one of glory or escape, it's a quiet endurance, woven into every unstained shirt she delivers. If this gentle tale of resilience soothes you, maybe tap that like, or share where you're listening from. There's a warmth in knowing we're all here, drifting through these forgotten lives. So, pull your blanket close, dim the lights, and step into her world, soft as linen drying in the wind. As the turnspit dogs pause slow and the kitchen's roar fades into the night, another labor begins in the castle's laundry yard, where the washerwoman's work is already underway. She rises well before dawn, stirred by the cold seeping through her pallet near the chimney in the servants' hall. Her bed's a thin straw mat, damp with the ever-present chill, and her wool kirtle, stiff with salt and smoke, smells of lye and toil. She wraps a scarf over her hair, shoves cracked leather shoes onto her feet, and moves like she's late because she always is. Her basket, heavy with yesterday's linens, nobles' shirts yellowed with sweat, underthings damp with fear, napkins stained with wine waits by the door. A single tear or stain could mean dismissal, or worse, a whip sting, and she's seen girls sent away for less. Her day starts in the courtyard, where the well's pump groans under her hands, water splashing cold and loud in the silence. She fills 2 wooden buckets, balanced on a yoke that digs into her shoulders, and trudges past the smokehouse to the laundry yard. There, a great copper pot sits blackened over dead ashes, and she kneels to coax a fire with flint and trembling fingers. The wood's damp, the air sharp, but the flames catch, and soon the water steams, clouding her face with warmth that doesn't reach her bones. She stirs in lye, made from hardwood ash she filtered last week, watching the liquid turn cloudy, careful not to splash her arm still bearing burns from the last slip. Sorting comes next. Coarse linens in one pile, fine ones in another. The lord's shirts and ladies' shifts demand reverence, not for their silk, but for the punishment a flaw invites. Wool stays separate. She's seen a cloak shrink to a child's size in one careless boil. She soaks the linens in hot lye water, stirring gently to loosen stains and stench, then kneels at a stone slab by the well, scrubbing a servant's tunic with black soap tallow and lye, harsh on cloth and crueler on skin. Her knuckles whiten, the stone bites, and the heavy, sodden fabric fights back. Rinsing in a barrel clouds the water instantly. A faint smile crossing her lips progress, however small. The cold seeps deeper as she works, fingers numbing in icy rinse water. She switches hands, clenching to keep blood moving, blowing on them futilely. She thinks of the scullery maids, the wood carriers, all cold like her. But it's no comfort, just a reminder of shared suffering. For larger items, sheets, tablecloths, she heads to the stream behind the outer wall, beating them with a wooden paddle in the shallows. Each swing sends water up her sleeves, soaking her to the bone, her knees sinking into mud. Other washerwomen from the village work nearby, their silence broken only by the slap of wood, water, and weary sighs. Beating, rinsing, twisting linens, dry leaves her shoulders screaming, but she drapes them over bushes or ropes strung between trees. In winter, they're hung near the hearth, risking sparks. Damp cloth and flame are uneasy neighbors. She tends the fire, stirs the next batch, hauls more water, losing time in the cycle hall. Soak, scrub, rinse, hang. By midday, her forearms are numb. By afternoon, her back's a knotted rope. Hunger gnaws. But she eats only a stale crust from her apron, chewing slowly, watching linens dance in the wind. A wine stain lifts from the lady's veil, sparking brief pride, but a frayed hem dims it. She'll patch it, praying no one notices. Collecting the dry, she folds crisp shirts, checking for mist stains or damp, sorting noble garments with care, layering cloth between each like armor. She delivers them by hand, head low, eyes averted, invisible as she must be. At the kitchen door, she nods to a scullery maid reeking of fish and fatigue, passing a bundle of rags to the cook's grunt of thanks. The Lord Solar is her final stop. She knocks, hands the basket to a servant with a practiced bow, and slips away before her name's recalled. Her hands are raw, neck aching, back twisted but no stains. No losses today was good. Back in the laundry yard, she douses the fire, empties tubs, rinses soapstones. A sheet's blown loose, half in mud. She snatches it before eyes catch it, knowing she'll rewash it tomorrow. She doesn't complain there's no point. As the sun dips behind battlements, she sits on an upturned bucket, hands outstretched to the fire's fading warmth, pain pulsing back into chipped nails and peeling fingertips. In her apron, a scrap of linen, a torn towel she's sewing into a handkerchief in stolen moments, holds her only claim to something hers. No time for it tonight, but its presence is enough. She eats in the servants' hall, pottage, bread, warm ale quickly, eyes low, then returns to her pallet. The chimney's faint heat is her only comfort, the damp curdle still clinging. Her work's done. But tomorrow waits with water, soap, fire, and pain. Yet, there's a quiet pride in her clean linens, a nod from the maid, a veil restored. In the stillness, she dreams of her handkerchief, stitches slow but hers, a small rebellion against the grind. Sleep pulls her under, soft as folded cloth, until dawn calls her back to the buckets. As the washerwoman's hands still and her eyes close, another figure stirs in the castle's shadows, spear in hand, pacing the cold stone of the gatehouse. His watch is one of solitude and vigilance, guarding against threats that lurk beyond the walls, and his story carries the weight of unseen duty. The quiet, shadowed world of that medieval castle, where the flicker of torchlight dances on stone, and every sound carries weight. We've just left the washerwoman, her hands raw from lye, folding linens under the fading glow of the laundry yard's fire. Now, let's climb the worn steps to the gatehouse, where a lone figure grips a spear, his breath fogging in the icy air. This is the castle guard, a man of solitude and vigilance, standing watch while the world sleeps. His story isn't one of clashing swords or heralded deeds. It's a steady pulse of waiting, watching, and bearing the cold alone. If this hushed tale of duty wraps you in calm, maybe tap that like, or share where you're drifting off from. There's a stillness in knowing we're all here, lost in these forgotten lives. So, pull your blanket close, dim the lights, and step into his world, quiet as frost on stone. As the washerwoman's fire dies and her linens rest in neat stacks, another soul stirs in the castle's chill, his boots scuffing the gatehouse floor. The castle guard wakes with a jolt, spear still clutched, realizing he's nodded off for a heartbeat. The brazier beside him is nearly dead, its orange coals crackling faintly in the dark. He rubs his eyes, shifts on the cold stone bench, and peers through the arrow-slit. Night, fog, and silence greet him. No knight or soldier with songs to his name, he's just a guard, tasked with standing, waiting, and freezing, the first to fall if danger breaches the walls. His knees ache from the second night shift this week, a bruise throbbing from yesterday's training, where a wooden blade slammed his ribs. The sergeant called it a lesson. He muttered something else, but only in his head. His job is deceptively simple. Watch the gate, patrol the walls, report anything strange, and don't sleep. The bell tolls faintly, muffled by fog, marking hours until dawn. Wind whistles through murder holes above, sharp and relentless, tugging at his thin wool cloak standard issue, barely a shield against the cold. His breath curls like smoke in the torchlight, a reminder he's still alive. He stretches, pacing a slow circle inside the gatehouse, knowing every crack in the slick, sooty floor. The outer parapet's worse, wind lashing his legs, the courtyard below empty save a dog sniffing the kitchen door and a drunk stumbling from the latrine, mumbling off-key. He doesn't call out. Not his problem tonight. He checks the portcullis hinges, rusted but locked, his gloved hand grazing the freezing iron. A jam would be his fault. a weight he carries with every patrol. Day shifts offer sunlight and chatter, but also drills and inspections. Night's his domain, lonely but free of noble sneers. He's forgotten unless trouble comes. Then suddenly, he's the night guard everyone remembers. Back on his bench, he rests his head against the wall. Helmet off, it's too heavy after 7 hours of nothing. His spear's a crutch, grounding him as he listens for the bell or footsteps that don't belong. A sound, not a voice. Not a step pricks his ears beyond the gate. He stands too fast, knees groaning, spear gripped tight. He holds his breath, edging to the door, but it's nothing a bird or frost shifting the gate. Exhaling, he returns, heart still thumping. He's jumpy, but can't afford not to be. From his pouch, he pulls dried meat, cold and gristly, chewing slowly, jaw aching. It's dinner, mocked once by a noble boy with a pastry and silk handkerchief. He didn't reply, just kept chewing, as guards do watching, standing, enduring. His first winter watch lingers in memory. Toes numb, fingers purple, skin splitting. He learned to wrap wool inside boots, layer greasecloth under gloves, small tricks that barely help. Midnight bells toll, and he patrols from the eastern tower to the west, past the armory and chapel, where a priest's candle flickers. On the wall walk, black trees sway in mist, the moon a pale stripe across fields. No movement, but he sees everything. His mother's farm, harvest moons, cider. He hopes she's still there. Back at his post, the brazier's dead. He doesn't relight it, the cold keeping him sharp. The captain arrives, boots echoing, inspecting without a word. Still breathing? He asks. Barely, the guard replies. A grunt, then silence as the captain leaves. No praise, just presence guards aren't here for thanks. Dawn nears, fog lifting, the sky paling. Soon, day guards will arrive, loud and rested, and he'll hand off his spear, fading into the barracks' mildew-scented cot. Last year, bandits tested him 6 or 7, drunk and desperate, storming the gate past midnight. He wasn't asleep. He rang the bell, shouted, held the gate as others armed. One, axe in hand, nearly reached the portcullis. His spear found the man's ribs, blood gurgling in the dirt. He didn't sleep for days, haunted by the sound. No thanks came, just a crust from the steward, a nod from the sergeant. His reward? Another night on the gate, trusted to stay awake. His hip aches from leaning on stone, bones grinding like a drawbridge. He ignores hunger, cold, noble sneers, the fear of dying first in a siege. Yet, there's pride, not the kind toasted in halls, but the kind that keeps his back straight in the dark. He keeps the castle safe, a duty no one sees, but all depend on. His jerkin straps are cracked, helmet dented, but they work, like him. Around him, sleeping guards snore, one twitching in dreams. He envies their rest, but not their ease. Lying on his cot, he traces mortar lines like roads, winding and uncertain. Above, nobles sleep in feather beds. Below, he curls under a smoky blanket, knife beneath his pillow. If danger strikes, he'll be sent first. That's a guard's lot. Sleep claims him, fleeting and fragile, until bells toll again. As his eyes close, the castle stirs, buckets clanking, the cook's voice barking. He's earned his rest, but the gate waits, and his story, like his watch, continues in solitude and vigilance, steady as the fog that cloaks the walls. While the castle guard's boots echo faintly in the gatehouse, another figure moves through the darkened halls, her lantern casting soft pools of light. This is the night watchwoman, a silent protector whose steps are as soft as whispers, guarding the castle's sleeping heart. Her story isn't one of battles or banners. It's a quiet vigil, woven from keen ears, steady hands, and a life spent unseen. If this gentle tale of watchfulness eases you into calm, maybe tap that like, or share where you're drifting off from. There's a stillness in knowing we're all here, wandering these forgotten lives. So, pull your blanket close, dim the lights, and step into her world, soft as a candle's glow. She begins her shift in the deepest hours, when even the castle's stones seem to slumber. Rising from a narrow cot above the linen stores, she shakes off the chill that clings to her wool dress, layered thick against the corridor's tooth-cracking cold. Her soft shoes, patched with cloth scraps, muffle her steps, and silence is her first rule. A tallow candle, lit with a click in her lantern, casts dancing shadows as she checks her keyring, heavy with the castle's trust. No armor, no sword, just keys and a voice to raise if fire or foe stirs. She's no guard, but her watch is just as vital, threading through nurseries, tapestries, and storerooms where a single spark could devour all. Her first stop is the nursery, where two noble children sleep fitfully under embroidered quilts. She knows their fevers, their fears, but not their names. Straightening a blanket, she leaves without a sound, her lantern's glow barely brushing their faces. The hall of tapestries comes next, grand scenes of blood and glory looming in the dark. A creak behind her wood settling, she tells herself, doesn't turn her head, fears a luxury she can't afford. She checks the library door, locked tight since rats once chewed a manuscript, earning the steward's wrath. The chapel's quiet, a votive candle burning low. She snuffs it, mindful of last winter's near miss, with smoldering drapes. Climbing narrow stairs, her legs ache from the third round tonight, or the woods creak, mices scuttle, or condensations drip. She knows the castle's pulse, what's normal, what's not. In the east wing, an open window catches her latched at supper. It has no business gaping now. Setting her lantern down, she closes it softly, not reporting it. The steward scoffs at ghosts, but she doesn't. A singed noble's cloak in the laundry room, too close to a wall jack, draws a sigh. She'll mend it before dawn. Stitches slowly but sure, saving someone's blame. The kitchen corridor's pot still steams with sour onion broth. She dips a crust, careful not to take much enough to feel human. No one saves her a plate. Her hours don't align with the servants' hall. She knows which shelves hide cheese or a shriveled apple, the cook turning a blind eye, perhaps remembering her own night watches. The Lord's solar stare looms forbidden. She guards its threshold, never crossing into that world of feather beds and warm slippers. A baby's cry in the dormitory pulls her to knock gently, passing warm water to a bleary-eyed mother who nods wordless thanks. The castle's walls feel alive in these hours, heavy with centuries of lives' scrubbed floors, carved arches, all touched by hands, long gone. She doesn't feel small but tethered, part of a chain that keeps her moving. Her lantern's candle wanes, tilted to coax more light, shadows dancing on stone. In the storerooms, she scans for rats or sparks, knowing a fire here could gut the castle. An armory door, cracked open, quickens her pulse. No weapon in hand, just keys. She steps inside, finding only a draft. She bolts it firm, heart easing, and returns to her seat by the kitchen hearth, mending the singed cloak. Her stitches are even, born of practice. The bells toll for morning prayer as she finishes, the castle stirring doors creaking, groans rising. She folds the cloak, hangs it, and climbs to her cot, a shelf-like perch above linens. Curling tight, she feels the castle breathe around her. It sounds like a lullaby. In the night's stillest moments, she forgets time. The castle, a world of shadow and draft. A pouch of salt in her apron, a ward against evil per the old cook's tale, stays untouched but ever present. She steps over a cold stone patch in the east corridor. Habit more than fear. Noble secrets drift past a mistress, slipping between chambers. The steward pilfering candles. She sees, says nothing, earning a blanket left on her cot, an unspoken trade. Pausing by the great window, stars glitter cold and far, her mother's tales of the night's listening ears echoing. She whispers, practical wishes, dry shoes, a steady hand unanswered but comforting. Her legs ache, fingers shake, but she walks on, checking locks, halls, shadows, because someone must. No songs will name her, no statues rise, but pride flickers in her quiet duty. A child sleeps safe, a fire's snuffed, a cloak's mended small acts that hold the castle's heart. As dawn nears, she dreams of stars, not glory, waking to bells, stretching weary limbs to begin again. Her watch, like her life, is unseen but vital, a thread in the castle's tapestry, steady as the night's endless watch. So, the shadowed heart of that medieval castle, where stone walls whisper of lives unnoticed, and the flicker of torchlight holds stories no bard will sing. We've walked with the scullery maid, her hands raw from ash, the spit boy, burned by the hearth's glare, the gong farmer, lost in the night's stench, the chamberlain's apprentice, weighed by keys and lists, the stable boy, trusted by horses, the turnspit dog keeper, coaxing weary paws, the washerwoman, scrubbing through pain, the guard, standing alone in fog, and the night watchwoman, threading silence with her lantern. Now, let's pause to honor these invisible pillars, the workers whose quiet endurance built the castle's grandeur, their sacrifices woven into every stone. If this final tale of unseen strength wraps you in calm, maybe tap that like, or share where you're drifting off from. There's a gentle bond in knowing we're all here, lost in these forgotten lives. So, pull your blanket close, dim the lights, and let's linger in their world, soft as the embers glow. These workers, from the scullery's depths to the windswept walls, are the castle's unseen foundation, their labor the mortar binding its splendor. The lords feast on swan and sip mead in halls aglow with tapestries, but it's the scullery maid's blistered hands that scrub the pots, the spit boy's burns that roast the meat, the turnspit dog keeper's bribes that keep the wheel spinning. The chamberlain's apprentice counts candles so the light never fails, while the washerwoman's lye-soaked fingers ensure the linens gleam. The stable boy's shovel clears the stalls for noble steeds, and the gong farmer's night toil keeps the cesspits from choking the air. The guard's cold vigil holds the gate, and the night watchwoman's soft steps snuff out sparks before they flare. Their work, uncelebrated, is the castle's pulse, each task a thread in a tapestry no one names. Their lives are a study in endurance, not the loud heroics of knights, but the quiet kind that grinds through hunger, cold, and scorn. The scullery maid rises before dawn, her straw sack barely warmer than the stone floor, to haul water and kindle fires, knowing a crusty pot means latrine duty. The spit boy, barely 10, turns heavy spits through headaches and burns, gnawing bones in corners, his dreams of green fields fading in the hearth's heat. The gong farmer wades into reeking pits, shunned by neighbors, his coins hard-earned but laced with rot's cling. The chamberlain's apprentice, ink-stained and sleepless, carries keys like burdens, one lost lock a career's end. The stable boy, scarred by hooves, whispers to horses who trust him more than men, his silver coin a rare proof he's seen. The turnspit dog keeper, coughing ash, shares scraps with dogs as weary as he, their nuzzles a fleeting warmth. The washerwoman's knuckles bleed for clean shirts, her secret handkerchief, her only claim to self. The guard, freezing on his bench, holds the gate through fear, a bandit's blood still haunting his sleep. The night watchwoman, lantern low, men's cloaks and secrets, her salt pouch a ward against the dark. These small acts of survival shared bread, a dog's nuzzle, a clean shirt, carry profound meaning in their world. The scullery maid's hidden crust, nibbled in guilt, is a defiance of hunger. The spit boy's bone, gnawed in shadows, is a claim to life. The gong farmer's pocketed coin, found in filth, is a spark of worth. The apprentice's nod from the steward, rare and fleeting, is a moment of being known. The stable boy's carrot for the mare, her velvet nose against his hand, is a bond no lord could buy. The dog keeper's crust for Moors, her warm curl beside him, is a kindness returned. The washerwoman's handkerchief, stitched in stolen moments, is a piece of her soul. The guard's crust from the steward, after a night of blood, is a silent thanks. The watchwoman's mended cloak, saving another's blame, is a thread of care. These acts, small as they seem, are their rebellion against a world that forgets them, proof they're more than cogs in the castle's machine. History's pages, filled with kings and conquests, leave no room for these lives, yet their strength is no less real. The castle's grandeur, its feasts, its gleaming halls, its safe walls rests on their shoulders. Not the lord's. Without the maid's pots, the feast fails. Without the boy's spit, the meat chars. Without the farmer's rake, the air chokes. Without the apprentice's lists, the stores falter. Without the stable boy's shovel, the horses stumble. Without the dog's paws, the row stalls. Without the washerwoman's scrub, the linen's shame. Without the guard's spear, the gate falls. Without the watchwoman's keys, the sparks spread. Their resilience, forged in cold hunger and silence, is the castle's true might, a testament to the forgotten who carry the weight of the scene. Their sacrifices are quiet but profound, each day a choice to rise, to work, to endure. The maid's bleeding knuckles, the boy's scorched skin, the farmer's shunned steps, the apprentice's aching eyes, the stable boy's bruised ribs, the dog keeper's blackened lungs, the washerwoman's twisted back, the guard's frostbitten toes, the watchwoman's weary legs, they give these to keep the castle standing, asking nothing in return. No statues rise for them, no songs echo their names, but their legacy is in the castle's breath. The meals served, the fires snuffed, the gates held, the linens clean. They're not heroes in the minstrel's tales, but in the dark, where no one looks, their strength is the truest kind. This narrative honors their uncelebrated contributions, a quiet salute to lives that history overlooked. The scullery maid's scrub, the spit boy's turn, the gong farmer's rake, the apprentice's quill, the stable boy's brush, the dog keeper's coax, the washerwoman's paddle, the guard's spear, the watchwoman's lantern. They're the castle's soul, not its gold or glory. Their stories, told here, are a reminder that greatness isn't only in crowns but in the hands that lift them, unseen. As the castle sleeps, their work lingers, a silent promise that dawn will come because they endured the night. And as we leave these invisible pillars, their quiet strength echoes beyond the castle walls, a reminder of the forgotten who hold up every world. Their legacy, unwritten but enduring, carries us to rest, soft as the castle's last breath before dawn.